Chapter 2: The Worshipper and the Weekday Service. In our attempt to present the religious customs and practices of Israel, we shall in this chapter make, in thought, a visit to the Jewish house of worship and observe some of the special institutions worthy of note. There is perhaps no class of people to whom the house of worship is more sacred than to the Jew. The laws preventing its desecration are numerous and are framed to meet all violations of sanctity in which men may indulge. The Jewish teachers of the 2nd century placed the same emphasis upon respect for the synagogue as upon regard for the ancient temple of which the synagogue is the substitute. They forbade laughing and talking within its walls. Megillah 28a. At his entrance and departure, the worshipper is, as they said, to conduct himself with decorum. They tell that one should go quickly to the house of God, but leave it slowly. Eating and drinking are prohibited in the synagogue. Refuge from the heat and rain was not to be taken in it. People are admonished to be among the first at its services. And we see Sabbath 32a and 28a of Megillah. And 28b of Megillah, and Baba Metzia 107a. Before entering the synagogue, the hands should be washed. For this purpose, a pitcher of water is found in the anteroom corresponding to the laver before the sanctuary and temple. In some localities, burial from the synagogue is forbidden because of the defilement of the holy place by the corpse. An exception is made only in the case the dead is one learned in the law. Upon close examination, we find that a public service is never begun unless the quorum fixed by tradition is present. This quorum consists of 10 men. Less than 10 men is never regarded a congregation sufficiently large for public devotion. Some conservative Islamic groups do the same sort of thing, that there has to be at least 40 or when it's really 2, but I think 10 is one of their numbers too. In the Ethics of the Fathers, we read, if 10 are assembled and are engaged in the study of the law, the Shekinah, the presencing, resides among them. Abath 3:4. It is on the basis of this opinion that the size of the quorum was fixed. While 10 constituted a quorum in the earliest days of the existence of the synagogue, Treatise Sopharim mentions that in Palestine services were once held with 7 men. Sopharim 10:7. Women do not count as members of the quorum. The rabbinical law exempts women from the performance of all religious duties which are to be executed at a definite time. Kedushin 1:7. And in Islamic law, and as we find mentioned in Surah 2, really women are, equal testimony and stuff like this, but in other traditions it's not. It's only in modern times where Jews, Christians, and Hindus and stuff are, considering them equal in testimony and government and all that other stuff. But however, in some instances of the modern Occidental synagogue, not only women are counted in the congregational quorum, but also 10 people are not considered absolutely necessary for holding public worship. Many communities are in the habit of having 10 persons attend services for an emolument in order that the conducting of a service be not prevented. During the Middle Ages, when in all probability this custom arose, the persons engaged for this purpose were older students of the Talmudic schools. Later, however, it became customary to select persons from the deserving poor. While in the synagogue, worshippers kept their heads covered, a practice observed also by many persons when reading any and every Hebrew text, because literature written in the so-called Holy Tongue is considered specially sacred, and its study is regarded as a religious act. A not insignificant number of Jews considered sacrilege to go at any time with uncovered head. There is no biblical warrant for this custom. although it is often stated that as the high priest wore a head covering when officiating in the sanctuary, so should every Jew when praying. The wearing of the headgear is undoubtedly nothing more than a remnant of Orientalism. Among Muslimin and Pharisees, the same practice obtains, and Islam doesn't require it. It seems to have gone before that. The Pharisees required it sort of before. But there are some prehistoric indications that people thought like spirits could get you if you weren't wearing a hat or something like that. Nard is the lengthy section of the Talmudic passage, La Yaqal at Rashu Kungad Shar Hamzrach. One should not make his head light before the eastern gates. Barachoth 54a. Convince the student that the wearing of the hat is anything more than a custom without foundation of law. And among the Persian and among the Islamic tradition, even, if there's the idea of a preferred clothing, it's not that the clothing protects you or that you can't use what's, available. But there's never been one Judaism, so some of the origins are very confusing trying to figure out. If some people consider the wearing of a head covering an important feature of the devotion of the Jew, the case is none other than the instance of Paul of Tarsus that men should sit in the church with uncovered head as the surest means of severing their connection with the synagogue. Says Paul, every man praying or prophesying having his head covered dishonoreth his head, for a man indeed ought not to cover his head. 1 Corinthians 2, 4, and 7. Verses 4 and 7. In a number of Jewish congregations, the head covering is removed during worship on the ground that Occidental residents and Oriental habits are incompatible. This is no new departure. Israel Abrahams tells that on the Feast of Rejoicing over the Law, boys in the 15th century ascended the Bema bareheaded during the reading of the Pentateuchal section. Even adults were known to have prayed bareheaded in France. A point noteworthy in this connection is that the head is to be kept covered, the hands are to be kept uncovered. Gloves must therefore be removed during devotion. This custom is based on the synonymous use of praying with the biblical phrase, spreading forth the hands, during the early morning prayers on weekdays, but not on Sabbaths and holidays, on the Jews' private as well as public devotions. Males over 13 years of age wear tefillin, the phylacteries, on the left arm and the head. The tefillin are 2 square boxes of hard parchment, each of which is called a bayith, receptacle varying in size from half a cubic inch to 2 and 3 cubic inches. And so we see for the head, for the arm, and Rabbanu Tam's phylacteries in these pages here. Each receptacle rests on a base with a protruding loop through which a leather strap is drawn. The 2 ends of the strap are tied together so that the knot formed by the strap of the phylactery for the head has the shape of the Hebrew letter Daleth, and the knot of the phylactery of the arm has the shape of the Hebrew letter Yod. On the bayith of the phylactery of the arm we see no letter impressed, while on 2 sides of the exterior of the bayith of the phylactery of the head we see the letter Shin embossed. This Shin, together with the Daleth Yod, is referred to spell the word Shadi, Almighty, which also means the casting out of the goat demon, which to some makes it the coolest name of God in the Bible. The baith of the phylactery for the head is the dividing into 4 compartments. Into each one of these is put a piece of parchment containing one of the 4 sections of the Pentateuch, interpreted as commanding the wearing of the phylacteries. The parchment put into the first compartment, starting with the right side, as worn on the head, contains the following. And God is a noun and verb spoken to Moses, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn. Whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine. And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of hand, God is a noun and verb, brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came ye out in the month of Abib. And it shall be, when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and the 7th day shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee. Neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. And thou shalt shew thy son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which the Lord did unto me, when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, and that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year. Exodus 13, 1-10. The second compartment contains these passages. And it shall be, when God is a noun and verb, shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto thee, and unto thy fathers, and shall give it thee, that thou shalt set apart unto God as a noun and verb all that openeth the matrix, and every firstling that cometh of a beast which thou hast, the male shall be God as a noun and verbs, and every firstling of a donkey you shall redeem with the lamb. And if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among thy children shalt thou redeem. And it shall be, when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What is this? That thou shalt say unto him, By strength of hand the Lord, God, increasing existence, brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that God as a noun and verb slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beasts. Therefore I sacrifice to God as a noun and verb all that openeth the matrix, being males, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem. And it shall be for a token upon thine hand, and the frontlets between thine eyes, for by strength of the hand God as a noun and verb brought us forth from out of Egypt. Exodus 13, 11-16. And the third compartment are the words, Hear, O Israel, God as a noun and verb, our God is one. And thou shalt love. God is a noun and verb, thy God, with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by thy way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the post of thy house and on thy gates. Deuteronomy 6, 4-9. The parchment of the fourth compartment reads, And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love God as a noun and verb, your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, and the first rain and the latter rain, and thou mayest gather in thy corn, and thy wine, well, all juice, I think, and thine oil, and I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. Take heed to yourself, that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other entities and worship them. And then God, as a noun and verbs, wrath, be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, and lest ye perish quickly from off the good land, which God as a noun and verb giveth you. Therefore ye shall lay up these, my words, in your heart and in your soul, and bind them as a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes, and ye shall teach them your children, speaking of them when thou sittest up in thine house, and when thou walkest by thy way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorpost of thine house, and upon thy gates. Deuteronomy 11:13-20. The bayeth of the phylactery for the hand consists of only one compartment, into which is put a parchment containing the above 4 sections written continuously. The materials used in the making of the phylacteries must be of the skin of Levitically clean animals, and the sections indicated must be written according to the rules governing the writing of the scrolls. The Talmudists trace every feature of the phylacteries, certainly without foundation, back to Moses, as they do almost every other ceremonial institution known to them. Although the straps of the phylacteries are usually black leather, the use of black leather could not have been universal, as one rabbi is said to have fastened his phylacteries with purple ribbons. And remember, purple and blue are sort of the priestly colors for the Jews while they're supposed to wear the thread. And among the Yazidi that they encountered, Malik Taus, Moloch, was supposed to have forbidden humans from wearing the blues and the purples, because of the peacock incarnation. Now it's like 6,700 something years ago. What did I say? Refer to that list. I have it exactly there. And we hear of, in Islam, we hear in some traditions of pre-Christian Europe, in the Hindu section, that manifesting through your body, through your deeds and stuff, these names of God, these scriptural passages, rather than having them written all over everything. Some people ended up writing them over. Yogis wrote names of God on their bodies and stuff like this, but some people lived the principle and showed it that